Azerbaijan, if I could. Members of our commission have twice now visited Baku. We met with President Aliyev in a rather lengthy meeting on human rights issues in his office on both occasions. When more individuals, including journalists, including Hadija Ismailova, was arrested and given a draconian jail term of over 7 years for doing investigative journalist work, we put together a very comprehensive Azerbaijan Democracy Act, introduced it, and to me, the react by the Aliyev government, including the parliament, has been startling, foolhardy, in my opinion, because they have claimed things that are absolutely untrue. They claim that the Armenians put me, Chris Smith, up to it. The Armenians had absolutely no input, advance notice, or anything else about the bill. Nothing. So when I hear this coming from the parliament and coming from major media and presidential spokesmen, I wonder about their credibility on other things, because I know what we did, and the Armenians reacted to it long after the fact. They had no advance even notice that we were doing it, because it's all about human rights in Azerbaijan, or the lack thereof. And so that took me by surprise, in the sense that it was a very foolish response and a false accusation at that. There's no doubt that I have long been a strong believer that the Armenian genocide needed to be recognized, held a hearing on that more than 10 years ago. 15 years ago, that is, and then another one recently. But that doesn't mean that holding any country, including my own, our own, to account on human rights abuses is something that we shy away from. So your thought on that? I know the EU has sent one of their top human rights groups to investigate, because, again, Journalists Without Borders and other groups have been very critical of this crackdown on journalists, and it's not just journalists that are being thrown into prison, as you know so well. Maybe you could speak to Azerbaijan, because my hope is we're looking for reform. That's it. Let people out of prison who have committed no crime. When investigative journalists do things here on corruption or anything else, they get prizes, Pulitzer Prizes and a whole host of other awards. In Azerbaijan, they go to jail. So that would be the first question. The second, again, if I could, on Nagorno Karabakh, obviously one of the frozen conflicts. It seems to be an ever-present tinderbox. Your thoughts on what might be done there to mitigate harm there? On either side, we don't want to see anyone hurt, but there have been flare-ups very, very recently.
On Azerbaijan, you mentioned the journalists. The journalists are key to early warning, by the way. A free media landscape, a free media press is part of the normal early warning process that should happen in a civil society. So if you shut down, of course, independent media, if you don't have a pluralistic approach in media, as diverse as possible, then of course a society can go very, very wrong. Therefore, it is so important indeed here what, for example, the representative for the freedom of the media of the OSCE, our colleague Dunja Mijatovic, what she is doing, speaking out here and pointing to problems in area of prosecution of journalists. We, as ODIHR, have repeatedly spoken out on limitations of our work when it comes to electoral observation and in our work with and for human rights defenders. We also mentioned the person you mentioned in your introductory statement, Hadija Ismailova, and who was a participant in one of our meetings and then, of course, later on had problems after the meeting. So certainly, human rights defenders, activities in favor of and supporting civil society is absolutely crucial, and we remain active, certainly, in that area, also in connection with Azerbaijan, and we would like very much, of course, also in future to be able there to observe elections. On the Karabakh process itself, I cannot have an active input because we are not part of these negotiations there. But we can just hope that free elections are also helping to build confidence and security. Because elections, it's not only about human rights. Yes, that is at the forefront and decision making. But free elections are also a confidence and security building mechanism. Look at the parliamentary elections in Ukraine shortly after the events on the Maidan and the presidential elections. That was an enormously important confidence and security building measure, accepted by all 57 states in the OSCE, because it was critically observed and fundamentally observed, of course, also by ODIHR. All these things, of course, if you apply these mechanisms right, they can, let me repeat it, also help to be a sort of not only classical human dimension work, but also have an aspect in the first dimension, because it is also security, concretely security and confidence building.